Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the Oraan Podcast. I'm Halima, one of the founders of Oran, and with me today I have Farwah, who's the other founder at Oran. We're here to introduce you the Oraan podcast because we thought this was an important platform to talk about money and break the taboos around money as well. So, welcome to this episode, and we're here to share not only our journey, but in the following episodes, talk to different people around their journeys with money and the difficult conversations that take place in the society around money and how it hampers women to get to the financial independence that we require. So, welcome, Farwa.
Hi, thanks.
How are you today?
Good.
Oran we created with an agenda, right? We both have very different perspectives of why we created it, but the mission is the same, the vision is the same. So, would like to share your journey with the audience and then talk about why Oran was created.
When did I first earn my paycheck? When did I first start even thinking about savings, right? And I still remember I was 13 and I did a bunch of, I've always been entrepreneurial. I've always started a bunch of things. When I was 13, I actually did a bunch of courses. And at the same time, I went out and teach at PACC. I don't know if anybody knows about it, but I was an assistant as an English teacher.
At 13.
At 13.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't
right?
know that about you.
Yeah, I got my first paycheck and I still remember being like, oh my God, my mom's gonna be so excited. I'm gonna give her something with that paycheck. And I think what I ended up doing was saving that paycheck because savings is something that has been taught at my house, right? We come from a family where everybody thinks about saving first. Where do you start putting away money? And when I was even a kid, mom used to put away our ED money, dad used to put away money into term deposits or national savings. And that money actually allowed me to start my first business, Designs by Farwah.
Yeah.
When I moved back to Pakistan in 2018, when we met, we started clicking. We were like, oh, you were on a different journey. But we started realizing that people had such different accesses to
Yeah.
money or information.
Yeah.
And that when I started researching how people save, for me, seeing that other side was like, no, this
Yeah.
change has to happen, right? There's a lot that people either don't have access to or don't know. And what can I do to make that change happen to the general economy? How can we make money simple for people around us, women around us?
Yeah.
And that has been the start of my journey for Oran.
Yeah. And I have a very different journey, right? Like, I didn't come from a family that was big on savings. It was more of, we were big spenders. But it was also the for me, I think the first point of understanding the value of money was when I was 18 and I had to figure out my life myself in college, and take up financing for education or being able to just figure out my life as an independent girl at that time.
That's the first time you did a committee, right?
Yeah, that was the first time. So I actually paid off my student loan through committees. But my mother was always big on committees. उनने पूरी जिंदगी जो है वो कमेटियां डाल के पैसे जोड़ के अपनी
Same as mine. I think
Yeah.
it's like something we
Yeah.
found across.
But it was interesting because for me, when I moved back after my work career and education, I started realizing कि fundamentals यहाँ पर थोड़े से broken है पाकिस्तान में. My journey was around कि इतना broken system क्यों है, right? Like basic bank account एक औरत क्यों नहीं खोल सकती किसी dependent के बगैर, right? And that's how I went on to this journey, and I met you, and we had a very different perspective on savings, but also how finance should be looked at from a holistic community perspective. So, what do you want to talk a little bit more on, like what the journey of creating this platform and being also women entrepreneurs?
I mean, you hit it on the nail. For us, we both met and we were both on this mission, right, to change the status quo. 4 years ago. And as we started researching, I was coming from the informal side. You were really understanding the formal side, and had that separate perspective. Okay, how do people save and where's the gaps?
Yeah.
And I still remember one day when you were like researching on your line and you were like, oh, Facebook पे इतनी सारी communities है, committees चल रही हैं, and there's this teachers committee, right? And you were so excited. We were like, oh my God, there's a whole new space to research.
Yeah.
And I still remember because at that time, for me, I'd seen everyone in my house do it, and as I started researching, so many different people and their stories around how committees service them, from full बच्चों की शादियाँ to बच्चों के education से लेकर घर बनाना, medical expenses, फ्रिज, कुछ भी मैं सोचती थी एंड सामने वाला बोलता था कि मैं इसके लिए सेव कर रहा हूँ, मैं 3 महीने में ले रहा हूँ, या मैं 6 महीने में ले रही हूँ, या मैं 20 महीने में ले रही हूँ. So it was so interesting. I remember at that time seeing how people were managing money through committees.
I also remember that event that we went to, which was in Karachi, and it was this 1,000-2,000 people coming together for an event which was all around committees. That was just so fascinating to see कि आपके business owners से लेके आपके factory owners to shop owners to people from all walks of life coming together to be able to bid on money.
Yeah.
And this was all informal. It was just so fascinating to see.
It was mind-boggling because I remember we were like, oh my God, these sheets that they have, they actually had entire structures, financial structures, but on very informal spaces. How do they manage, and how do they even manage this social group, right? And how they manage their families with this, because it was such a social interaction. And I think a lot of things clicked for us at that point. I still remember it was very exciting to go to all parts of the city to meet these people, to see किस किस्म की committees होती हैं, दिन की होती हैं, हफ्ते की होती हैं, lucky committees होती हैं, bidding committees होती हैं. It was a very interesting journey for us to learn about this.
Yeah, and I think what I want to also touch upon is we took out our time to understand the market, and we took out the time to understand the customer. In Pakistan, largely women are not your chief wage earners, right? But they are the ones who are managing the finances in their households. But this product has given so much agency and authority over that finances. Do you want to talk a little bit about the myths around committees?
Committees seems like you said it, how many times have we said we want to make committees cool again? Because committees, when we also saw, 41% of our population on average takes part in it. I think that was the biggest myth. It's not done enough, or and it's across the board, right? If you go to the top of the pyramid, it's 36%. If you go to the bottom of the pyramid, it's 56%, which is crazy. It's used more than the banking system. And I remember thinking, oh my God. The other thing I always found interesting is, we always associate women with committees, especially in Pakistan. And I found it so crazy that actually men are nearly as equal in participating in committees. But on the other hand, it's one of the only forms of financial tools that women use more than men in any part of the world. So it's an exciting space and it's something that's a social norm. कुछ भी हो जाए, आपकी अम्मी हैं, या आपकी चाची हैं, या आपकी भाभी हैं, वो आपको क्वेश्चन नहीं करेंगी कि कमेटी कर लें. वो आप कह रहे हैं कि देखिए मैं 1,000 से शुरू कर सकती हूँ, मैं 5,000 डाल रही हूँ, तो बोले अच्छा चलो डाल दो, right? And as you start, and that's it's these small steps, right? We realized is this concept of micro saving. कि आप छोटे छोटे से start करते हो, and as you get that money back, you build the trust of people and families. All of us, I have felt empowered. I know my mom that is how my mom has felt empowered throughout her life to manage my entire house, right? And that is something that changes how they feel and how they behave, right? And their futures and their kids' futures. And for us, seeing these, has actually motivated, I know, it has motivated the both of us, right?
And it's also religiously acceptable.
Absolutely.
And it's culturally acceptable, which makes it a lot more easier for people to take up a digital format of it as well, right? And I think when you talk about these stories, we can go on and on about the stories that we have heard, but I think a few of them that have stuck by me, it has been women getting out of abusive relationships, women being able to finance their education or their kids' education, medical treatments, like things जो हम भूल जाते हैं कि इतनी इम्पोर्टेंट होती हैं और कोई ऑप्शनैलिटी नहीं अवेलेबल पाकिस्तान में लोग औरतों के लिए स्पेशली एंड आई थिंक दैट वाज अ टर्निंग पॉइंट फॉर अस टू position it also that we will cater to women first. You want to talk a little bit about that?
I mean, our first few members, really, right? Back in 2019, when we first started going out and reaching out, I still remember meeting these women. And for me, it was like, oh my God, they're so, they're doing such big things. And they've been doing this year in, year out. And how can we empower them more? And all it was about not only just providing this committee, but or this access to money, but information.
Yeah.
Thodi si coaching, thodi si baat, and they're like, you were able to change their lives.
Yeah.
Okay, I remember कि एक औरत थी, she was running her own shop. मैं कैसे करूँ, मैं इसकी rent
Yeah.
और मैं mortgage कैसे pay करूँ? Just by talking to us, she was able to be empowered to go and talk and
Yeah.
fight for her rights.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? These life-changing, like just moments,
Yeah.
instances, right? From on a little bit from our side and changes and deflects for the other person to
Yeah.
another direction.
But I think this mission and this drive on how much impact that we've had has helped us navigate the darkest of moments in our life, right? Because this journey is not easy. And this journey also requires a very, very thick skin. Because हमारी सोसाइटी में या हमारे जिस इकोसिस्टम में हम रहते हैं उसमें औरत के ऊपर और भी बहुत सारी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज़ होती हैं. What has your life changing moments been around that?
Our first idea was we were like so excited about it, people were excited about it, but people weren't ready to pay for it.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
were like, oh my God, what's the gap?
Yeah,
I think that was a big life changing time on my entrepreneurial journey with Oran, right? कि उस वक्त हम लोग क्या करें?
Yeah.
कि आप मतलब कि नहीं चल रहा है तो बैठ जाओ या आप आगे भरो, कुछ और सोचो, right? And having that support, right? Us talking about it with a bigger team, that's a big life-changing moment that every entrepreneur goes through to get to the next step, right?
But I think what you're saying is something very important here. I think we were not fixated to the idea of, we were not fixated to the solution हमने जो बनाया था उस वक्त. हमें प्रॉब्लम से मतलब था और हम उस प्रॉब्लम में इतना डीप घुस चुके थे कि अब निकलना was like, what, we gotta figure this out no matter what. And I think that still happens, right? Like कुछ चलता है, कुछ नहीं चलता. कभी कोई बहुत great idea आता है, but like when you go out in the market and validate it, it's like नहीं चलेगा.
I think one of the other important things is that you're passionate, right? I think that what's driven me a lot of the times, all the time, right? And I say this to nearly every entrepreneur, anybody who I meet, right? Like if you don't believe and if you're not passionate about what you're doing, because the reality is, as an entrepreneur, you never switch off.
Yeah.
आप घर जाओ, आप सो, आप कुछ भी करो, right? You're thinking about what you are doing. And if you are not happy with your work, then it becomes very tough.
Yeah.
Right? And it's about finding those highs, because and I know that every one of us, both of us today, and every one of our team members will say that every day has a high and a low.
Yeah.
Right? And to get through those, it's not even through weeks, it's days. You need, like you said, that thick skin, but you also need that motivation.
Yeah.
And you need that inspiration
Yeah.
and passion and that belief in what you are doing.
And also the support system. I do remember both our mothers were also our first few customers because there was so much support and there was also not just support but also recognition उनके part पे कि ये एक बहुत important problem है because हमने भी face करी है ये problem. And then sharing their networks, sharing their stories with us कि किस तरीके से उन्हें पैसे जोड़ के पैसे यहाँ वहाँ से जमा करके they gave us that life that we have today. And I think that also pushed us to create this platform and a community जहाँ हम like-minded औरतों के साथ मिल के we're solving this bigger problem. And I think it's not something that can be done in silos.
Absolutely, right? And I think another point is that it's also important that it's a diverse space, right? You're building for so many different kinds of people, and what is amazing is that we've been able to attract this diverse group of people who are passionate about the
Yeah.
same thing, on the same mission, right? My father was the first one there to say कि नहीं तुम्हें ये करना है, तुम कर सकती हो ये, right? And having that support at the back
Yeah.
of no matter who it is very important, and that's something that we've been able to also build in our company, right?
Yeah.
Having both female and men is very important to be able to do that, because our society needs both. Change
Absolutely.
doesn't happen from
Yeah.
one side, right? And it's a joint thing.
Yeah.
And we hope to make that happen.
And why do you think so you touched briefly upon कि important है ये बात करना, but can you talk a little bit about like इसका impact communities पे क्या होता है जब आप पैसों के बारे में बात करते हो, जब आप uncomfortable conversations शुरू करते हैं, what is the trickle effect that you've seen in your experience happen?
Any uncomfortable conversations, they come with a lot of truth, right? And people have a hard time digesting it. But the more you speak them, right? Or anybody, हम लोग के खुद की community के अंदर, when they have that safe space, right? हम लोग की जो Facebook community है for just women, we've seen that, when you start talking about an issue, right? Other women come in,
Yeah.
and other women feel that they can speak about it, right? They're more comfortable. मैं अकेली नहीं हूँ.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. We all feel that we're alone,
Yeah.
right? And especially in today's day, we all talk about mental health and we talk about being alone, especially through COVID. It's so much isolation, right? And money has always played that. And in today's day, it's probably amplified it,
Yeah.
right? And for us to provide that space, right, that community has allowed these women to bring in other women and make them feel comfortable and change the trajectory of other women and other households.
Yeah. And we're also seeing that upward mobility happen, right? Like जो लड़की अपनी एजुकेशन के लिए कमेटी के लिए आती थी, then she started coming अपनी शादी को फाइनेंस करना, फिर अपने बच्चों को फाइनेंस करना, फिर अपने घर को फाइनेंस करना. So we're seeing that impact happen in terms of the life. What would be, where would you like Oraan to be in the next 5 years?
I mean, doing the same in terms of making sure that women are empowered and the impact is just growing to millions around, right? And not just women, but their households, so that it's impacting whole,
Yeah.
a big thing. It's, around most communities, but in Pakistan, we live as joint,
Yeah.
right? And empowering women means empowering families.
Yeah.
And for me, it's ensuring that financial journey of that woman and their households changes, and they're able to
Yeah.
move upwards in their
Yeah.
lives.
For me, I think it will be very similar, but one very critical part of it is we should not be sitting here 5 years later and still having money conversations because they're so uncomfortable and there are taboos around it. I hope this platform changes that mindset, not just for women, but also for men, and holistically we're able to make this impact happen, inshallah.
Fingers crossed.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Farwah. This was a great conversation.
Thanks.
And a lot of great memories came out of it. And I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. And continue watching this podcast as we have some really, really great conversations coming up. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.